man was originally the top assassin on Earth, but during one mission he was forcibly summoned to another world. To get the man to help them defeat the Demon King, the mages used a secret spell to impose a constraint on him, promising to send him back to Earth once the deed was done. Helplessly, he had no choice but to take up arms and become their hound. After decades of arduous fighting, he finally eliminated the Demon King. However, they still refused to let him go, continuing to assign him tasks, ordering him to eliminate Baldur of the Teutonic Night Dome. For a chained hound like him, there was simply no choice. But just as Baldur was about to die, the Imperial Grand General quietly came up behind me. He first tied a magical thread around my neck, then drew the saber from his waist, giving me a fatal thrust. And just like that, I slowly lost consciousness, filled with resentment and humiliation. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself in a woman's arms, and the man behind the woman also looked quite familiar. I looked around and realized I was now inside a newborn baby's body. It seemed the reincarnation stone I had accidentally acquired earlier had worked. I also recalled that this man was none other than the continent's strongest necromancer and dark magician, Duke Saxon. This must be the legendary Black Tower, meaning I was incredibly lucky this time, getting a perfect start. Once I grow up and master necromancy, I will definitely make those imperial bastards pay. At this moment, Duke Saxon asked curiously, "Why isn't the baby crying after being born?" The wet nurse also found it very strange, noting that my breathing was unusually steady. With that, she picked me up and held me close. The Duke behind her asked, "Isn't it a bad omen if the baby doesn't cry?" The wet nurse told him not to worry, saying she had a way. With a slap, she hit me on the cheek. Seeing I still didn't cry, she gave me a few more slaps, but I remained unmoved. The Duke teased, "What a stubborn temper." Finally, seeing I still wouldn't cry, my mother reached out and took me back. I saw her raise her hand and thought I was about to be hit again, but instead, she gently stroked the place where I had been struck. This warmth made my heart tremble. I couldn't remember when I had forgotten this kind of warmth, nor could I recall how many years it had been since I last shed a tear. Finally, in my mother's warm embrace, I burst into tears. Just like that, 8 years passed in a flash. That evening, my parents chatted, mentioning that I seemed to have a particular fondness for magic, spending almost every day in the study since I was 4. My mother asked my father, "Do you remember the promise not to teach Dale necromancy?" My father said he certainly did. Just then, a knock sounded at the door. The maid entered after receiving permission and said anxiously, "Something's wrong. Young Master Dale is in trouble in the study." The parents' hearts immediately clenched. When they rushed to the study, they saw me surrounded by a ring of lightning magic. After my father dispelled the magic, my mother quickly checked if I was hurt. My father, meanwhile, looked incredulous, realizing that at only 8 years old, I was able to condense magic in the air. He walked up to me and questioned sternly, "Did you release the magic power within you?" In truth, I hadn't expected to be able to release magic power so quickly, so I didn't know how to answer my father for a moment. Just when I thought my identity might be exposed, my father showed a relieved smile, stroked my head, and said I was indeed his son, Saxon. It was just a pity he couldn't teach me necromancy. Hearing this, I managed to force a difficult smile. After I went back to my room to rest, my father told my mother he had an idea for what to give me for my birthday tomorrow. The next day at my birthday party, the hall was filled with high-ranking nobles and officials. Watching the lively scene below, I sat alone on the second floor, deep in thought. I had gotten used to being neglected during my time as a hound. Now being treated as a young master felt uncomfortable. But what concerned me more was what happened in the study last night. I had only been browsing through the dark magic books and needed to find a way to persuade my father. Just then, my mother came over to wish me a happy birthday. She pointed to the black-robed person behind her, asked me to greet him, and introduced him as the Elder of the Blue Tower, the water magic master, Elder Sefler. From now on, he would be my magic teacher. Upon hearing this, I understood. To prevent me from learning dark magic, my parents had invited the Blue Tower Elder to teach me water magic, which mainly focused on defense and interference. After the introduction, Sefler said he wanted to talk to me alone, and I followed him out. He asked if I felt disappointed, and if there were other types of magic I wanted to learn. Surprised, I asked him how he knew. Sefler revealed, "You want to learn your father's necromancy, don't you? The scene of your father, the Black Duke, marrying was known throughout the Empire. When your mother, Lady Elena, was courted by the Black Duke, she feared his notorious reputation. Your father then promised that he would not let his future children inherit his mantle, and even on their wedding day, not a single elder of the Black Tower wore black robes. So, it's very difficult for you to learn dark magic now. However, he said he could try to persuade my mother. Finally, he asked, "Are you willing to study magic with me?" In response, I asked him, "Don't you find necromancy and dark magic repulsive? You are an elf who follows the laws of nature. Don't you detest things like resurrecting the dead?" Sefler chuckled and said, "That's interesting. Are those holy acts of priests resurrecting the dead considered the will of nature?" Therefore, in his view, there was no difference between necromancy and resurrection magic. After listening to his explanation, I realized Sefler was different from those rigid elves. Perhaps he would be an excellent teacher, so I readily agreed. Next, Sefler began my first lesson. He heard that I had already formed fragments of a magic circuit a few days ago, and now he would teach me how to expand those fragments into a complete circuit. I knew this was called a first-level magic circuit, and many spells in the magic books I had read required a first-level circuit to cast. So, I followed his instructions, placed my hands on my heart, and concentrated. This world was completely different from Earth. The heavens and the earth here were filled with magic power, but unless one was an ancient creature like a dragon, almost no one could directly control the raw magic power in the air. To use that magic power, one needed a heart magic circuit, which acted like a filter, to process the raw magic power. It could gather and assemble the circuit fragments scattered around the heart, allowing the assembled circuit to run stably around the heart. Following Sefler's instructions, I quickly understood that constructing the circuit was essentially engraving the path of magic flow onto the heart. Sefler said I should practice step by step, circulating the magic power along the heart. It usually takes about a month to complete. But no sooner had he finished speaking than I told him, "I think I've already finished." Saying that, I slowly let the magic power condense in my hand to show him. This completely stunned Sefler. He couldn't believe an 8-year-old child had completed the circuit in just a few minutes. At that moment, only the word genius occupied his mind. He then tentatively asked, "Can you release the magic power through the circuit?" I said I could try. It was already difficult for an ordinary person just to release magic power from the circuit. Sefler thought to himself, ordinary people can only cast combat spells by relying on magic runes carved onto their flesh, but this trial showed that I inherited the talent of the master of the Black Tower, making this body more receptive to magic power. Perhaps I could even control magic types other than water. With that thought, I began to draw the absorbed magic power to my palm, then, through the magic circuit, condensed it into a physical form. I then sculpted the condensed ice block into an ice crystal bullet capable of piercing the Empire's throat, and continuously injected absorbed magic power. Finally, a virtually indestructible magical ice bullet was successfully created. Sefler thought, magic power usually dissipates during the process of condensing and releasing magic power within the body, yet I have perfectly crystallized the magic power. The next second, I shot the condensed ice crystal in my hand towards the tree behind him. The tough bark was penetrated as easily as a thin sheet of paper by my ice crystal, and then, with the explosion of the ice crystal, the nearly 1-meter diameter tree was split in two. This scene greatly astonished Sefler. This level of precise control was definitely not something an 8-year-old child should possess. It made him wonder, who exactly is this boy? He had only expected me to be able to release magic power at most, but he hadn't imagined I could even fuse water and ice elements. Seeing his expression, I thought I had done something wrong and went forward to ask. Sefler smiled faintly in return, thinking that fusion magic was such an advanced technique. How could a child possibly achieve it? So, he assumed I had completed the action accidentally and coincidentally. To achieve fusion, one must first make the magic power spin rapidly, constantly accelerate it, and finally compress it. These 3 steps are known as the golden ratio of magic. Such a perfect, high lethality spell had been released unintentionally. After regaining his composure, Sefler said it was nothing. Later, Sefler went to my father's room and said he could no longer teach me magic. Confused, my father asked, "Since he completed the magic circuit in just a few minutes, shouldn't you intensify the instruction?" But when my father heard Sefler say that after completing the first-level circuit, I immediately released a killing spell, his body couldn't help but tremble. That was a war-level spell. It was truly unimaginable that an 8-year-old child could do that. This meant the young master now had the ability to kill. My father asked them, "Isn't the Blue Tower specialized in defensive magic? Can't you teach him that?" Sefler said he wanted to guide me onto the right path. The confused Duke asked him, "Why do you now say you can't teach him?" Sefler calmly replied, It seems the young master already knows the magic he wants to learn, the dark magic of the necromancers. Hearing this, the Duke's heart twitched fiercely. Cephalor then added, he knows about the Duke's promise to his wife, but that does not give you the right to strip a child of the choice of their future, especially a boy who displays such outstanding magical talent. However, I couldn't hear what they were discussing outside the door, but it was certainly about me. Even I hadn't expected the first time I released magic to be so powerful. It seemed I would have to learn to control the intensity in the future. Just then, a knight called out to me. I looked up to see who it was and happily greeted him as Uncle Helmet, asking where he had been all this time. Helmet crouched down and hugged me, saying that as an imperial soldier, he had to perform his duty to protect the country, so he had been to the front lines these days to eliminate the monsters trying to invade the empire. Hearing this, I knew he had been raiding a dungeon. In this world, the appearance of dungeons or the invasion of demonic beasts are major events within a territory. Since the fall of the Demon King, they have never stopped, and the primary task of the territorial knights is to raid one dungeon after another and clear out the monsters escaping from the collapsing dungeons. After I defeated the Demon King in my previous life, Duke Saxon was ordered to conquer the former territory of the Demon King and turn it into imperial land. Thus, the dungeons in Duke Saxon's territory were several times more numerous than elsewhere. After he put me down, I told Helmet, "Be careful and don't get hurt." Just then, the door opened and my father walked out. Seeing Helmet, my father said he had worked hard. My mother came over and, seeing everyone there, walked up to me and said she heard I had completed the first level magic circuit, and as a reward I could ask my father for anything I wanted. I thought to myself, would it be too abrupt to directly ask him to teach me dark magic? After considering it, I said I wanted a little sister. Upon hearing this, both my parents' faces instantly flushed bright red dot. That night, lying in bed, I complained that pretending to be a child every day was truly difficult. After I fell asleep, I dreamt again about being killed. I woke up instantly, feeling my heart area releasing magic power constantly, feeling as if it was about to explode. This made me think of magic power overload. I had thought that getting some night air might help, but the situation was only getting worse. Just then, Cephalor walked past me from behind and said I looked like I was in pain. In fact, Cephalor had long known that a genius like me would surely experience magic power overload. He gently placed his hand, wrapped in magic power, on my heart. When he felt the powerful magic within me, he thought that if I were to fall to evil in the future, the consequences would be unimaginable. In just 2.5 seconds, Cephalor restored my body to calm. Then he told me, magic makes no distinction between good and evil, it depends entirely on the person casting it. However, the magic you currently possess is extremely dangerous, and thus I am honored to be your teacher and guide you toward goodness. With that, he handed me a book. I took it, looked down, and discovered it was a book on dark magic. Finally, he said, "Happy birthday." Seeing his gentle smile, I couldn't help but hug him tightly. A few days later, Cephalor took me to the outskirts and found a cute, white and gentle little rabbit to serve as my training target this time. I first condensed the circuit array in my palm, then stepped towards the rabbit, simultaneously waving my hand to release a magical attack. Instantly, the ice crystal bullet reached the little rabbit. The next second, the ice crystal shot through, directly freezing the entire body of the little rabbit. Cephalor noticed that my fingers didn't tremble at all when I killed a life. With that thought, he told me, even when using the same kind of magic, the forms presented by different mages are all different. Confused, I asked him, "Why is that?" Cephalor said, "The essence of magic is a mirror of people's inner minds. It uses magic particles to present the thoughts in people's minds. Therefore, magic will inevitably reveal the inner landscape of the caster. This is the wonder of the magic towers. The red tower advocates maintaining order through the pressure of authority. The blue tower maintains order through harmony and friendliness. Besides these, there are the white tower, the green tower, and the black tower. The philosophies upheld by each magic tower are reflected in the magic they use. However, this is still too early for you." Then I began to use the necromancy spell I had just learned on the rabbit's corpse. This spell could revive a corpse and make it obey the caster's commands. After I finished casting, the rabbit slowly stood up, and control over its body was firmly in my grasp. Cephalor said I did very well, and asked if I could complete the next task. I told him, of course. Then I condensed the array again, casting the frost armor spell towards the puppet rabbit. The rabbit's body, struck by the magic, instantly condensed a layer of armor made of sharp ice. Seeing me finish the spell, Cephalor also condensed an array, preparing to test the strength of my frost armor.